My name is Ross Sheil. I'm Vice President of Revenue at Infogrid. We're a smart buildings platform headquartered out of London. Today, my talk is on using the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence to create healthy buildings, and I'll be talking about some general trends in the Internet of Things space, the challenges in implementing smart analytics in buildings, some applications for Infogrid specifically around our healthy building system. We'll round out our conversation on a customer story that demonstrates the efficacy and impact of IoT in real life. So just a quick introduction on Infogrid before we get started. Infogrid was founded about 3 years ago. We're headquartered in the UK, have offices across Estonia, London, and New York. Our value proposition is on making the Internet of Things easy to deploy and creating large-scale IoT networks that are easy to use. But as everybody in this room knows, that's not always been the case. Sometimes they've been too expensive or too complicated, and both of those things combined together makes the Internet of Things a bridge too far for some businesses on occasion. Sometimes those connected city utopias and connected building utopias in cities like Amsterdam are a bridge too far. And this is where Infogrid comes in. So just a brief overview of how our technology works before I jump into the talk track. Infogrid is a software company. We have some of the best hardware partners in our hardware ecosystem. We're able to take sensorable data from the built environment and apply machine learning algorithms and proprietary models to that data across a broad range of use cases and applications for buildings that range from air quality to occupancy, to water safety, to smart maintenance, and many more areas. Our specialization is really in the data science and the machine learning elements of that. Of course, as our previous speaker touched on, we're really talking about a system of systems here. And that's been our vision, that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So being able to access all of those data sets inside one single pane of glass that you can integrate seamlessly with a fully open API and integrate into BMS or BOS to implement smart automations in your building, making those hardware components speak to each other and surfacing those insights in an intelligent way, which we often refer to as Google Translate for IoT. So to put this into context, I just want to take you on a brief tour of history. Sometimes it's difficult to separate the wood from the trees when we're going through such a tremendous pace and amount of innovation, how significant this innovation is in the context of human history. And what you see in front of you is a quick snapshot of the first industrial revolution in the 1700s. Humans figured out how to harness the power of steam and water power to mechanize production, really evolved humans from being this agrarian society to a society that was powered by manufacturing and industry. Really responsible for the capitalist society that we live in today. The second industrial revolution in the 1800s. Again, so much innovation in this time frame. Nicholas Tesla being responsible for cross-country power transfer, bringing electricity to industry and production. Lots of other innovation in this time frame, like the internal combustion engine. The third industrial revolution in the late 1900s. The first computers, mainstream electronics, the internet, the discovery of nuclear power. All of these things really advanced society. And now, today, we're right in the middle of Industry 4.0, what I refer to as AIoT, the proliferation of artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things, of course, providing that infrastructure to collect otherwise invisible data in industries like commercial real estate, and artificial intelligence being able to derive meaningful insights on that data to surface intelligent insights and actions on buildings across a broad range of use cases. To take a step back and just look at the pace of growth in the Internet of Things, to put this into context for everybody in the room, the industry will almost triple in value over the next 5 years, growing to about 420 billion in enterprise grade value. Microsoft estimates today that about 96% of businesses in some shape or form are using the Internet of Things. That may be light case implementations in a lot of instances, but deeply integrated with building management systems and BOSs in many of those integrations specifically. So IoT is really having its moments. And in any disruptive business that I've been a part of historically, I've always looked to Geoffrey Moore's framework, which many of you are likely familiar with, his seminal piece and book on crossing the chasm. And typically, the story of any cutting edge industry is that there will be some early movements in a market. You'll get early adopters, innovators, usually responsible for about 20% of the market or less. And really the opportunity, once you cross that chasm, is in those early movers, the early majority, the late majority, and the laggards. And I think what we've seen over the last couple of years is that IoT has crossed that chasm. We've had innovation on 5G. Moore's law continues to compound from a manufacturing point of view. Millennials, Gen Z are really driving that agenda. And IoT is now in a space where it has real life applications for businesses. Of course, a lot of innovation happens in a very short period of time. And it's easy to forget that IoT sometimes has had a few snafus in the past. Some of the ones that come to mind are the Las Vegas casino that was brought down by hackers who entered the system through a smart thermometer in the fish tank and were able to achieve and retrieve a high roller database from that casino, which they were going to use for malicious purposes. Probably some kind of bad joke about fishing in there. The second example, more recently, Tesla and the Model X, where they were able to identify weak points in Tesla's security protocols through a drone and a Wi-Fi dongle over a Model X just 3 years ago. Of course, today, the pace of innovation has improved. Many of these things are a distant memory and a distant artifact from the past, and particularly in cellular, these kind of instances are rarely seen, if at all, today. So before we dive into the smart building specific aspects of this, just want to align on what AIoT is, what that fourth industrial revolution is. And you can think of the Internet of Things, as many of you are incredibly savvy in this room, the ability to collect all of that unstructured data from places where data was otherwise invisible before and establish facts, data points across commercial real estate assets in a very robust way. Artificial intelligence is the ability to apply machine learning, computer vision, deep learning to those data sets in order to derive meaningful action, automate processes, refine processes, and optimize those. And I'll talk a little bit about how Infogrid is implementing those from a product and application point of view. The reason why commercial real estate has such a clear application for AIoT is that buildings are this massive data black hole. We spend 90% of our time in buildings. They're the world's largest asset class. I discovered today that, based on my building age, I've spent about 31 and a half years in buildings. Just multiply your real age by 0.9 and about 3.5 years outside on average. So it's a real paradox. We spend all of this time in buildings, but why do we have so little data on them? And the second piece here, which Infogrid is very focused on, is the carbon emissions impact. 39% of all carbon emissions produced in the world are produced by commercial real estate today. But yet we have no real agenda, no real tactical, practical ways of addressing those across the commercial real estate footprint globally. There's also a lot of tailwinds here. Consumer expectations are shifting, as we've seen recently today. In a survey that we commissioned recently, we can see that 61% of employees in buildings feel improved air quality makes them feel safer. About 1 in 2 employees have misgivings and are uncomfortable in returning to the workplace. And about 60% of employees would feel better if they had data on the healthiness of their building. So if you look at the intersection of all of those things, the answer is AIoT. How can we empower employers across return to work agendas? How can we empower business owners, real estate investment companies, facilities management companies to tell that story more powerfully with data? We've seen as a general theme across today that the clean air agenda is going mainstream. Piece I read in the Sunday Times over the weekend likened what is happening to air quality now to sewage systems that were put in place in the early 1900s. If we're able to treat sewage in such a structured and processed way, why can't that be true for air quality as well? And a big part of what we do at Infogrid is solving for this. And there are two aspects to Infogrid's business. The first is our healthy building system, which I'll talk about in a moment. And the second is smart maintenance. They're the two big rocks that we focus on as a platform. And in the context of healthy buildings, we really adopt a four-pronged approach. One, air quality. Is the air quality in this space pure? Two, occupancy. Is the occupancy in this space at a healthy level? Three, smart cleaning. Is this place clean and hygienic? And what impact does that have on the air that we breathe in this space? And four, is the water safe in this building? How can we ensure that all of these things together produce a healthy building and a healthy environment? And to the premise that the previous speaker put forward around a system of systems, we believe that that is true for healthy buildings. Air quality is a critical foundation upon which to build a healthy building, but there are other dimensions that drive the healthiness of that building overall. So Infogrid, as an example, through collecting water safety data, air quality data, occupancy data, and smart cleaning data, is able to surface recommendations like, on a Thursday, your building is at 90% occupancy from the hours of 2 to 4. And when we look at the CO2 production during that window, we can see that it reaches 2,000 parts per million, which is an unhealthy level for your employee base. How do you go about creating smart recommendations like increasing the ventilation in that space or revisiting your occupancy plans for that building? And likewise, with other aspects of a healthy building, like ensuring a consistent temper differential throughout the course of the day, so there's not that volatility and spikes in data. The really important part of this is it's one part of the problem to surface these insights to building owners. It's another part of the problem to actually drive action and ensure that you can close the feedback loop, that folks in the building, inhabitants of that building, are taking action to make it healthier. So at Infogrid, we have a smart alert system that is able to notify any workplace team of a specific action in a building. All of that data is available in our API to fully automate those processes over time. As it's a self-learning system powered by machine learning, it also analyzes all of the historical data points and surfaces recommendations based on historical data also. And all of this does not happen in a vacuum. And there are really what I call hard dollar and soft dollar savings to this. So on initiatives like ensuring the building is hygienic, making sure that there are no chemicals wasted unnecessarily in cleaning a building, or that cleaning staff in a building are really paying attention to those areas that need to be cleaned. Our smart cleaning solution is able to do that very seamlessly. Or with our water safety solution, using a machine learning model and a machine learning application to detect Legionella compliance across water pipes through a microtile IoT sensor that's non-invasive across any part of the building. And I'll just wrap up very quickly with talking about each individual piece of the air quality. Airthings, one of our hardware partners in our ecosystem, have such great out-of-the-box functionality and inferences on machine learning models that are able to surface components like a virus risk score and, of course, key airborne data points like VOCs, temperature, humidity, particulate matter, and so on. Everybody is aware of the impact this is having on cognition, productivity, concentration, let alone a lot of the source of disease that we've caused today. Inside Infogrid, you can get all of this data up to the minute live in a real-time environment so that you can understand your air quality data simultaneously and concurrently. The second piece of this is water safety. So water safety, folks are not familiar with Legionella. It's essentially waterborne pneumonia. There's very stringent and heavy levels of compliance on building owners to ensure that there is no Legionella in the building. In fact, if it is discovered, a building can be shut down for weeks in certain industries, particularly in healthcare environments. At Infogrid, we're able to detect the presence of Legionella very accurately across large real estate footprints of thousands of buildings, moving from a world where you have manual engineers probing taps to a world where you're simply monitoring your real estate footprint and its compliance with Legionella in a single dashboard. Occupancy and air quality are inherently linked, and it's important to have both of those data sets side by side so that you can understand when you have a large amount of people in one space, how does that impact air quality and what the actions are that you need to take in that space in order to ensure a safe environment and duty of care to all of those folks in a room. With our occupancy solution, again, you have that live in a real-time environment up to the minute data that you can query in Infogrid. And comparably with smart cleaning, the last piece of the puzzle with our healthy building solution, smart cleaning enables you to detect spaces that need to be cleaned, ensure that you can be judicious with your cleaning team on creating a hygienic environment and avoiding unnecessary use of harmful chemicals overall, moving from a world of kind of blind cleaning, rota-based cleaning, to a world of outcome-based cleaning and condition-based cleaning across your real estate footprint. To give you a quick snapshot of some of the impact this has on an actual business. We work with a wide variety of clients, from Fortune 100 businesses to enterprise customers. Large global banks is an area that we focus on in particular. And Infogrid and addressing these challenges with IoT, it's very much a painkiller, right? A business has a challenge around Legionella compliance. It's a costly exercise when you have a large real estate footprint like 500 branches. It's a big line item on your P&L. And through a remote solution powered by machine learning, you can deploy that labor and those man hours elsewhere in a building to ensure that you're focused on making that building healthy in other ways. In this particular example, we see a very clear ESG benefit where this large global bank was able to save up to 10 million liters of water per annum. The energy savings on a per building basis, about 30,000 kgs of CO2, 24,000 kilowatts saved heating water, and unnecessary CO2 reduction around traveling in cars, creating a very strong and tangible ESG benefit for this customer that summed up to a saving of £100,000 overall. And finally, also has a really significant impact on time saving. So what we see in a real world is that it reduces manual time spent, in this particular instance, about 81% reduction in hours. And the benefit of all of that is, as you're managing your healthy building across water safety, air quality, occupancy, and the hygienic factor of the building, it enables you to deploy those teams elsewhere to ensure that your building is at the most optimum level of healthiness through these automations and through these smart tools. So I'll just leave you with some key takeaways before I wrap up. And the first is that AIoT has crossed the chasm. The idea of IoT being an early market has accelerated by orders of magnitude over the last number of years, with the advent of 5G, smart manufacturing, a new agenda in the mainstream media, and that adoption in the enterprise that we've seen. AIoT is very firmly here to stay. The second is that consumer expectations are shifting and evolving very rapidly. The clean air agenda is mainstream. We believe in a future world where when an individual wants to go into a building, that they will ask about the healthiness of that building, whether that's WELL, FitWell, LEED, BREEAM, any certification. this is going to become increasingly top of mind for consumers and for businesses as they seek to create safe spaces or attract new talent to their companies. The third is that healthy buildings will be the gold standard for ESG. A lot of businesses are trying to figure out their ESG strategy and their ESG agenda. We touched on buildings being responsible 39% of all carbon emissions, and all of those building owners who are on the FTSE, the Euronext, indeed the SEC recently introduced legislation requiring NASDAQ-listed companies, it's pending currently, to make disclosures on their ESG. Healthy buildings are going to be a big painkiller in the context of how they handle those obligations. And finally, IoT drives real ROI. As we've seen in some of the examples, it adds up to a significant dollar saving on a per annum basis, in addition to the very clear ESG uplift and carbon neutral uplift that you've seen. So that's my presentation today. Happy to take a few questions if there are any. Question at the back. So the question is, are there any limitations to what markets Infogrid is in? We're generally global across all of EMEA. APAC is imminently about to launch, and we're live in North America as well. So generally global. There may be some edge case markets that we cannot serve at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much, Ross.